There is something being taken from you every single day. Something more valuable than money, more valuable than time, more valuable than status, positions, knowledge, or even opportunity. And the strange thing is that most people never notice it disappearing, because they have become so accustomed to losing it that the loss feels normal. If someone stole money from your wallet, you would notice immediately. If someone entered your home and carried away your possessions, you would call it theft. If someone wasted years of your life intentionally, you would feel outraged. Yet there is a theft happening continuously, silently, almost invisibly. And because it is invisible, it becomes one of the most successful forms of control humanity has ever experienced. Beloved ones, what is being taken from you is your attention. And until you understand the immense value of attention, you will never understand why so many people feel exhausted, distracted, anxious, fragmented, restless, and strangely disconnected from themselves, even when outwardly their lives appear comfortable. Attention is not merely a mental function. Attention is life energy. Attention is consciousness moving in a particular direction. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. Whatever captures your attention begins shaping your experience. Whatever repeatedly occupies your awareness gradually becomes your reality. This is why understanding attention may be one of the most important discoveries a human being can make. Look carefully at your own experience. Have you noticed how rarely you choose where your attention goes? Most people assume they are directing their lives consciously, yet if they observe carefully, they discover something startling. Their attention is constantly being pulled from one thing to another. A notification appears and attention moves. A headline appears and attention moves. A fear appears and attention moves. A memory appears and attention moves. A desire appears and attention moves. A conversation begins and attention moves. Something happens on a screen and attention moves again. The entire day becomes a sequence of reactions. The mind jumps continuously from one object to another without ever asking whether any of these movements are intentional. And because attention determines experience, life itself becomes fragmented. The person feels tired, not because he has done too much, but because his energy has been scattered in countless directions. A river possesses power because it flows together. If you divide the river into thousands of tiny streams, its force disappears. Human attention functions in exactly the same way. Concentrated attention creates power. Scattered attention creates weakness. Beloved ones, one of the greatest misunderstandings in modern life is the belief that attention is unlimited. People treat attention as though it costs nothing. They give it away carelessly. They surrender it to every distraction, every opinion, every conflict, every unnecessary worry, every passing impulse. Yet, attention is one of the most limited resources you possess. Your life is made of moments, and each moment contains a finite amount of awareness. Every time you invest attention in something, you are investing a portion of your existence itself. This is why attention is so valuable. You can lose money and earn it again. You can lose possessions and replace them. But a moment of attention is a moment of life. Once given away, it never returns. The quality of your life ultimately depends upon the quality of your attention, because your experience of reality is shaped not by what exists, but by what you notice. The world understands this far better than most individuals do. Entire industries compete for your attention. Entire systems are designed around capturing it, holding it, directing it, manipulating it, and monetizing it. Yet, beloved ones, do not misunderstand me. The problem is not technology. The problem is unconsciousness. Technology simply reveals what was already true. Human beings have always struggled with distraction. Long before screens existed, people were distracted by gossip, ambition, fear, social approval, fantasies, and endless mental chatter. The forms change. The mechanism remains the same. Attention moves automatically toward whatever stimulates the mind most intensely. And because the unconscious mind craves stimulation continuously, attention becomes vulnerable to manipulation. This is why awareness is power. Not power over others. Not power in the political sense. Not power in the sense of domination. Awareness is power because it allows you to reclaim ownership of your own attention. Imagine how different life becomes when you no longer react automatically to every thought. Imagine how different relationships become when you actually listen instead of merely waiting to speak. Imagine how different work becomes when your attention remains fully present. Imagine how different existence becomes when awareness is no longer dragged endlessly by unconscious impulses. The moment attention becomes conscious, energy begins returning to its source. Have you ever noticed how exhausted you feel after a day of mental noise? Perhaps nothing physically demanding occurred, Perhaps you spent most of the day sitting, yet by evening you feel drained. Why? Because attention has been pulled in 100 directions. The mind has been arguing, comparing, worrying, imagining, remembering, anticipating, reacting, and resisting continuously. Every movement consumes energy. Most people believe exhaustion comes primarily from activity. Often it comes from unconscious attention. The mind never rests because attention never rests. It remains trapped in constant movement. Beloved ones, the first step toward reclaiming your power is learning to observe where attention goes. This sounds simple, but simplicity often contains tremendous depth. For one day, simply watch. Notice what captures your awareness. Notice how often your attention leaves the present moment. Notice how quickly the mind becomes distracted. Notice how many thoughts repeat themselves. Notice how much energy is invested in imaginary situations. Do not judge what you see. Observation is enough. Awareness itself begins transformation. The moment you observe a pattern, you are no longer completely imprisoned by it. One of the most remarkable discoveries occurs when you begin watching thought itself. Most people assume they are thinking consciously. Yet, much of what they call thinking is simply repetition. The same fears return, the same concerns return, the same fantasies return, the same internal conversations repeat endlessly. Attention becomes trapped inside loops. A person relives old arguments, rehearses future scenarios, revisits ancient wounds, imagines problems that do not exist. And because attention follows these movements, energy becomes depleted. Life is lived through mental projections rather than direct experience. The strange thing is that the mind often convinces you these patterns are necessary. It calls worry responsibility. It calls rumination preparation. It calls anxiety caution. It gives respectable names to unconscious habits. Yet, if these habits truly solve problems, humanity would be extraordinarily peaceful by now. Instead, the opposite has occurred. More information exists than ever before, yet confusion remains. More stimulation exists than ever before, yet fulfillment remains elusive. More entertainment exists than ever before, yet boredom remains widespread. Why? Because attention has become disconnected from awareness. Beloved ones, attention without awareness becomes slavery. Awareness without attention becomes impossible. The two must come together. When awareness illuminates attention, something beautiful begins happening. You start choosing rather than merely reacting. You begin deciding what deserves your energy. You begin recognizing that not every thought requires belief. Not every emotion requires action. Not every opinion requires engagement. Not every distraction deserves participation. This realization is profoundly liberating because it returns authority to consciousness. Consider how much suffering comes from giving attention to things that do not deserve it. A single criticism can occupy the mind for days. A negative comment can dominate awareness, while dozens of positive experiences go unnoticed. One imagined fear can overshadow an entire afternoon. The mind magnifies whatever receives attention. Attention functions like sunlight. Whatever it illuminates grows stronger. If fear receives continuous attention, fear grows. If resentment receives continuous attention, resentment grows. If gratitude receives attention, gratitude grows. If awareness receives attention, awareness grows. Life follows attention with extraordinary fidelity. This is why meditation is ultimately the science of attention. Many people misunderstand meditation completely. They imagine it as a technique for becoming spiritual. They imagine it as a method for escaping reality. But meditation is far more practical. Meditation teaches you how attention functions. It reveals the mechanics of consciousness. When you sit quietly and observe, you begin noticing how attention moves. You notice its habits. You notice its compulsions. You notice its attachments. And through observation, freedom begins emerging. Beloved ones, perhaps the deepest secret is this: your attention creates your world. Two people can live in identical circumstances and experience entirely different realities because their attention moves differently. One notices beauty, another notices problems. One notices opportunities, another notices obstacles. One notices gratitude, another notices lack. Reality contains countless possibilities, and attention determines which possibilities become experience. Therefore, the quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. The world will always compete for your attention. There will always be distractions. There will always be demands. There will always be noise. The question is whether you remain unconscious within that noise or become aware of it. Because the moment awareness enters, control begins dissolving. You cannot easily manipulate a person who observes his own mind. You cannot easily dominate a person who understands where his attention goes. You cannot easily enslave a consciousness that has learned how to remain present. And perhaps this is what true freedom means. Not freedom from circumstances, not freedom from challenges, not freedom from uncertainty, but freedom to direct your own awareness. Freedom to choose what deserves your energy. Freedom to remain present when distraction calls. Freedom to witness thought without becoming lost inside it. Then something remarkable begins happening. The adjacent starts fading. The constant fragmentation begins healing. Energy returns, clarity returns, presence returns. You discover that attention is not merely a psychological function. It is your most valuable treasure. It is the doorway through which life is experienced. It is the currency of consciousness itself. And once you understand this, beloved ones, you stop giving it away carelessly. You become selective, you become aware, you become present. Because you finally realize that wherever your attention goes, your life goes. And if your attention belongs to everyone else, your life belongs to everyone else. But when your attention returns to awareness, your power returns with it. And in that return begins a freedom that no external authority can grant and no external authority can take away. Beloved ones, if you begin watching carefully, you will discover something that may shock you more than any political conspiracy, more than any social manipulation, more than any hidden system of control that people endlessly discuss. The greatest theft taking place in your life is not the theft of money, not the theft of opportunity, not even the theft of time. The greatest theft is the theft of attention. And because attention is invisible, because it cannot be touched, weighed, or counted like coins, most people never realize it is happening. Yet, attention is your most precious resource, because wherever attention goes, life energy follows. Your attention is your consciousness in motion. It is your vitality directed toward an object. It is your awareness flowing in a particular direction. And if someone can control your attention even temporarily, they can influence the quality of your experience, the shape of your thinking, the direction of your emotions, and ultimately the course of your life itself. This is why the battle for attention has become one of the defining characteristics of modern existence. Everybody wants it. Advertisers want it, politicians want it, media organizations want it, corporations want it, social platforms want it, religious institutions want it, ideologies want it. Even your own unconscious thoughts compete for it. Everywhere you look, something is demanding, pleading, seducing, are manipulating your attention. Because attention has become one of the most valuable forms of power in existence. The strange thing, beloved ones, is that most human beings give away their attention almost carelessly. They guard their money more carefully than they guard their awareness. If someone attempted to steal $100 from them, they would become immediately alert. They would resist. They would become suspicious. Yet the same people will allow hours of their attention to be consumed by unnecessary worry, endless comparison, meaningless distraction, repetitive mental noise, and emotional dramas that add nothing of value to their lives. They protect their wallets while leaving the doors of consciousness completely open. And because they do not understand the value of attention, they cannot understand why they feel exhausted despite doing so little, why they feel scattered despite having endless information available, why they feel disconnected despite being constantly connected to everyone else. The answer is simple: energy follows attention. A mind pulled in 1,000 directions cannot experience depth. A consciousness fragmented across countless distractions cannot experience peace. A person whose attention is constantly captured by external forces gradually loses contact with his own center. Look at your own experience honestly. How often do you actually choose where your attention goes? Not where you think it goes, not where you intend for it to go, but where it actually goes. You sit down intending to accomplish one thing, and suddenly an hour has disappeared. A thought appears and carries you away into memories. A notification appears and redirects your awareness. A worry emerges and consumes your inner space. An argument from yesterday replays itself. An imagined conversation about tomorrow begins. Before long, attention has traveled through dozens of psychological landscapes without your conscious participation. The mind behaves almost like a wild horse, moving wherever it pleases. Most people believe they possess their attention, but in reality, their attention possesses them. They imagine they are directing consciousness, while consciousness is being dragged from one object to another by unconscious forces. This is why awareness has always been the foundation of every authentic spiritual path. The mystics understood something that modern culture is only beginning to rediscover. They understood that freedom begins not with controlling the world, but with reclaiming attention. A person who cannot direct attention cannot direct life. A person who cannot remain present cannot experience reality deeply. A person who cannot sustain awareness becomes vulnerable to every passing influence. One moment he is happy because circumstances are favorable. The next moment he is miserable because circumstances have changed. One moment he feels successful because others approve of him. The next moment he feels worthless because approval disappears. His attention remains trapped in external conditions, and therefore his inner state remains dependent upon forces outside himself. Beloved ones, have you noticed how rarely people experience a single moment completely? Even while eating, they are thinking about something else. Even while listening, they are preparing responses. Even while resting, they are worrying. Even while walking, they are mentally somewhere else entirely. The body adjusts in one place, while attention adjusts somewhere else. This split creates enormous suffering because life can only be experienced where it actually is, and life exists only now. Yet, attention continuously escapes into the past or the future. It becomes trapped inside memory or imagination. It becomes absorbed in what has already happened or what might happen later. Meanwhile, existence continues unfolding, unnoticed. The birds continue singing. The wind continues moving through trees. The breath continues entering and leaving the body. The miracle of being alive continues happening, but attention remains absent. One of the reasons people feel chronically exhausted is not because they are doing too much. Sometimes they are exhausted because they are attending to too much. There is an important difference. Physical labor can create fatigue, but psychological fragmentation creates a deeper kind of exhaustion. Imagine trying to hold conversations with 50 people simultaneously. Imagine attempting to read 10 books at once. Imagine driving in 10 different directions at the same time. This would be impossible. Yet internally, many people live exactly this way. Their attention is divided among regrets, ambitions, fears, responsibilities, fantasies, social comparisons, unresolved conflicts, future plans, old wounds, and countless mental distractions. The result is predictable. Their energy becomes scattered. Their vitality becomes diluted. They feel tired not because life is too demanding, but because attention is constantly leaking through thousands of unconscious openings. The mind itself contributes greatly to this problem, because the mind survives through movement. It rarely wants stillness. It rarely wants presence. It prefers activity, because activity strengthens its sense of importance. The mind believes that constant thinking equals intelligence. It believes that endless mental movement equals productivity. Yet, much of what people call thinking is simply repetition. The same fears replay themselves. The same arguments repeat themselves. The same worries recycle endlessly. The same fantasies return again and again. If you watch the mind objectively for a single day, you might be surprised by how little of its activity is actually new. It is a machine repeating familiar patterns, and every repetitive pattern consumes attention. Every unconscious thought demands energy. Every unresolved emotional loop drains vitality from consciousness. Beloved ones, another reason attention becomes weak is because people have forgotten how to rest in simple awareness. They know how to distract themselves. They know how to entertain themselves. They know how to stimulate themselves. But they do not know how to simply be. The moment silence appears, discomfort arises. The moment nothing demands attention, the mind begins searching for something. This constant hunger for stimulation creates dependency. Gradually, the nervous system becomes conditioned to expect continuous input. Simplicity begins feeling boring. Stillness begins feeling uncomfortable. Presence begins feeling insufficient. Yet, the irony is that the peace people seek adjusts precisely within the stillness they avoid. Consider a lake on a windy day. The surface becomes disturbed. Reflections become distorted. Clarity disappears. Yet the lake itself has not lost its capacity for reflection. It merely needs stillness. Human consciousness functions similarly. The deeper intelligence within you has not disappeared. Your capacity for peace has not vanished. Your clarity has not been destroyed. The surface has simply become crowded with unnecessary movement. Attention has become scattered. Awareness has become fragmented. When attention returns to its source, clarity naturally emerges. Not because something new has been created, but because interference has diminished. This is why meditation is fundamentally the art of reclaiming attention. Many people misunderstand meditation. They imagine it as a technique for achieving special experiences. They imagine it as a method for becoming extraordinary. But meditation begins much more simply. It begins with noticing where attention goes. It begins with becoming conscious of distraction. It begins with observing the machinery that continuously pulls awareness away from the present moment. The meditator does not fight attention. He studies it. He watches it. He learns its habits. And through observation, a new possibility emerges. Attention gradually becomes less reactive, less automatic, less vulnerable to every passing impulse. Then something remarkable begins happening. Energy that was previously wasted becomes available. Not because more energy has been created, but because less energy is being lost. The endless inner arguments weaken. The compulsive worries lose momentum. The constant need for stimulation softens. Awareness gathers itself. And when awareness gathers itself, a tremendous power becomes available. Not power over others, not power in the political sense, but the power of presence, the power of clarity, the power of being fully here. Beloved ones, the people who truly influence the world are rarely those with the loudest voices. They are often those with the deepest attention. Because focused attention possesses extraordinary force. A magnifying glass can focus sunlight strongly enough to create fire. The sun itself has always been shining. But concentration of energy creates transformation. Human consciousness operates according to the same principle. Scattered attention weakens, collected attention transforms. When awareness becomes unified rather than fragmented, intelligence deepens, creativity expands, insight appears. Even ordinary actions acquire a different quality because they are no longer performed mechanically. The greatest secret is that attention determines your reality more than circumstances do. Two people can live through the same event and experience entirely different worlds because their attention rests on different aspects of the experience. One focuses on loss, another focuses on learning. One focuses on fear, another focuses on possibility. One becomes imprisoned by difficulty, another grows through it. The event remains the same, but attention creates different psychological realities. This is why mastering attention is not merely a productivity skill, it is a spiritual revolution. It changes the way existence itself is experienced. And perhaps this is why awakened beings speak so often about awareness. They are not offering philosophy. They are pointing toward the source of human freedom. When attention belongs to you, your life begins belonging to you as well. When awareness becomes conscious of itself, manipulation loses much of its power. Fear loses much of its authority. Distraction loses much of its attraction. You begin choosing rather than reacting. You begin seeing rather than merely thinking. You begin living rather than merely existing. Then, beloved ones, you understand something profound. The hidden energy you have been losing every day was never truly lost. It was simply scattered. It was trapped inside unconscious habits, unnecessary worries, repetitive thoughts, and borrowed priorities. The moment attention returns home, energy returns home with it. And when energy returns home, consciousness becomes luminous again. Presence becomes natural again. Life becomes vivid again. Then you no longer feel as if the world is constantly controlling you. You begin reclaiming the one thing that has always belonged to you: your awareness, your attention, your consciousness itself. And from that center, beloved ones, a different kind of life becomes possible. one not driven by distraction, not governed by fear, not fragmented by endless demands, but rooted in the quiet power of being fully awake to this moment, here and now. For the first time, perhaps, beloved ones, you begin understanding why so many people reach the end of their lives feeling as though something essential was missed. It is not necessarily because they lacked opportunity. It is not because they lacked intelligence, talent, resources, or ambition. Often it is because they never truly inhabited their own experience. Their attention was always elsewhere. When they were young, it was occupied by dreams of the future. When they became older, it became occupied by memories of the past. When success arrived, attention immediately moved toward the next success. When love arrived, attention became distracted by fear of losing it. When beauty appeared, attention was already chasing another desire. Life kept offering itself moment after moment, yet consciousness remained absent. This is one of the deepest tragedies of human existence. Not that life is short, but that attention is rarely present enough to fully experience it. A person can live 80 years and yet miss much of life because he was never truly here. He was always somewhere else psychologically, always moving, always seeking, always becoming, never simply being. And this endless movement creates a peculiar form of control. Because the easiest person to manipulate is the person who cannot remain present. Think about it carefully. If your attention is constantly being pulled by fear, anyone who can create fear can influence you. If your attention is constantly seeking approval, anyone who offers approval can influence you. If your attention is trapped in comparison, anyone who appears more successful can influence you. If your attention is addicted to stimulation, anything exciting can capture you. The unconscious mind becomes predictable because its reactions follow established patterns. It moves toward pleasure and away from discomfort automatically. It seeks validation, it avoids uncertainty, it chases distraction. And because these patterns remain unconscious, they become mechanisms through which life is experienced mechanically. Freedom begins the moment these patterns are seen clearly, not judged, not condemned, simply seen. Beloved ones, there is tremendous power in seeing. The moment you become aware that attention has wandered, attention has already begun returning. The moment you notice that fear is controlling your perception, fear loses part of its authority. The moment you recognize that a thought is merely a thought and not absolute reality, a gap appears between consciousness and mental activity. Within that gap lies freedom. It may seem small initially, almost insignificant, but entire spiritual revolutions begin inside such moments. Humanity imagines freedom as something dramatic. It imagines liberation as some extraordinary event. Yet often, freedom begins with something as simple as noticing. Noticing a habit. Noticing a reaction. Noticing an unconscious impulse. Awareness enters where unconsciousness once ruled, and the quality of life begins changing. This is why the awakened individual often appears different without necessarily appearing extraordinary. He still lives in the same world. He still encounters challenges. He still experiences emotions. He still faces uncertainty. Yet, there is a difference in the way attention functions. His attention is no longer entirely owned by every passing thought. It is no longer kidnapped by every emotional storm. It is no longer dragged endlessly into psychological dramas. There is a center. There is a witnessing presence. There is an ability to observe without immediately becoming identified with what is observed. Anger may arise, but awareness remains. Fear may appear, but awareness remains. Excitement may come, sadness may come, success may come, failure may come, but awareness remains. This stability creates an entirely different relationship with existence. Most people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to change circumstances while neglecting the quality of attention with which circumstances are experienced. They believe that if only the world changed, they would finally be at peace. If only the job improved, if only the relationship improved, if only society improved, if only the future became more certain. Yet, even when favorable conditions arrive, the restless mind quickly finds new reasons for dissatisfaction, because attention itself remains unconscious. The problem was never entirely outside. The problem was that awareness had become fragmented. A person carrying confusion into paradise will still find ways to suffer. A person carrying awareness into difficulty will discover unexpected peace. This is why the transformation of attention is more fundamental than the transformation of circumstance. Beloved ones, the secret is not to force attention. Force creates conflict. The more aggressively you attempt to control the mind, the more resistance appears. Instead, become interested. Become curious. Watch the movement of consciousness, the way you might watch clouds moving through the sky. Observe where attention travels during the day. Notice what repeatedly captures it. Notice what drains energy and what nourishes energy. Notice which thoughts return again and again. Notice how often the mind revisits the same worries, the same fears, the same fantasies. This observation itself begins creating intelligence. Awareness illuminates patterns that were previously invisible, and whatever becomes visible can no longer dominate quite so completely. As this observation deepens, a remarkable shift begins taking place. You stop treating attention as something accidental and begin recognizing it as something sacred. You realize that every moment of attention is a moment of life itself. Every place you invest awareness becomes part of your psychological reality. If attention continuously feeds resentment, resentment grows stronger. If attention continuously feeds gratitude, gratitude grows stronger. If attention continuously feeds fear, fear expands. If attention continuously feeds awareness, consciousness expands. Attention is creative. It shapes experience. It determines which inner worlds become powerful and which dissolve through neglect. This understanding changes the way you live. Suddenly, small moments become important. The way you listen becomes important. The way you walk becomes important. The way you breathe becomes important. Not because these activities are extraordinary, but because they become opportunities to reclaim consciousness. Walking can be mechanical, or it can be aware. Eating can be unconscious, or it can be aware. Listening can be distracted, or it can be aware. The activity matters less than the quality of attention brought into it. Once awareness enters ordinary moments begin revealing extraordinary depth. And perhaps this is the greatest secret hidden beneath all spiritual teachings. The purpose was never to escape life. The purpose was never to transcend existence. The purpose was never to become someone special. The purpose was to awaken within the life already being lived. To become present for the experience already unfolding. To reclaim the attention that has been scattered across endless distractions and return it to the immediacy of this moment. Then, beloved ones, something beautiful begins happening. The world does not necessarily become easier, but it becomes clearer. Problems still exist, but they no longer consume the entire horizon of consciousness. Difficulties still arise, but they no longer define reality completely. Thoughts still appear, but they no longer possess absolute authority. Emotions still move, but they no longer imprison awareness. There is space around everything. There is room to breathe. There is room to observe. There is room to respond rather than merely react. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, a new form of power emerges. Not the power of domination, not the power of control over others, not the power society celebrates. A quieter power, a deeper power, the power of not being easily manipulated by fear, the power of not being controlled by every passing desire, the power of remaining centered amid confusion, the power of seeing clearly when others are lost in emotional storms, the power of presence itself. Then you understand why attention is power. Not because it helps you achieve more, not because it helps you accumulate more, not because it makes you appear more important, but because attention determines whether you live consciously or mechanically. Whether you experience reality directly or through endless layers of conditioning. Whether your life belongs to you or to the countless influences competing for your awareness. And when this understanding flowers, beloved ones, the search begins ending. You stop looking everywhere else for the source of your strength. You stop believing that fulfillment depends entirely upon future achievements. You stop imagining that peace will arrive only after circumstances improve. Instead, you discover something astonishing. The power you were seeking was hidden inside awareness itself. The energy you thought was lost was simply scattered. The freedom you wanted was waiting inside presence. And the life you hoped to find someday was already here, patiently waiting for your attention. Then attention is no longer something you spend carelessly. It becomes something you honor, something you protect, something you bring consciously into each moment. And in that conscious attention, beloved ones, there is clarity beyond confusion, freedom beyond control, and a quiet strength that no external force can ever truly take away, because it arises from the deepest center of your own being, the place where awareness knows itself, where consciousness returns home, and where for the first time perhaps you are no longer merely watching life pass by. You are fully awake within it.